Matthews adjusted his tie in the security mirror, not because it mattered, but because routine was the only thing keeping him from asking the question that had been clawing at his throat for months. Risk. Why did the new hire know the name of his dead daughter? No one had said her name out loud in this building, not in the 8 years since the accident. Not since he buried her, deleted the voicemail she left him, and swore never to speak of her again. The company's internal files were clean, scrubbed, not a trace of Emily anywhere, not in payroll, not in HR, not in archived video footage. But 2 days ago, a fresh-faced temp named Rebecca had whispered it while passing him in the hallway like a curse sliding just beneath breath. Asterisk, she forgave you. Asterisk, she forgave you. Asterisk, that was the moment the floor cracked beneath everything. This wasn't some scripted corporate redemption tale. Matthews wasn't here to bond with employees for a PR stunt. He'd been embedded under false identity for a real reason. A reason buried under NDAs and sealed court records. But now, the game had shifted. The temp wasn't on any official list. No onboarding data, no background check. Just a face, soft and familiar, like something from a photograph you'd forgotten burning in a drawer. She smiled like someone who knew what he'd done. On the third day, the cameras started glitching. Not the cheap kind, either the high-end thermal surveillance units. Installed after the 2017 break-in, they began blinking out in sequence. Hallway by hallway, always right before Rebecca entered the frame. The IT manager, a man with 26 years of clean silence, resigned without notice. Left his ID card nailed to the break room wall, stabbed through the center with a fork. The card read CHR, but HR hadn't seen him. No one had. His apartment was found locked from the inside. Television on static. Refrigerator humming with exactly one half-empty bottle of children's cough syrup inside. And still, no one asked the question. Until last Friday, when Matthews, standing in the break room, finally did. Quietly. Dead serious. Who hired Rebecca? The air shifted, not metaphorically, literally. The temperature dropped 6 degrees in less than a second. The fluorescent lights above him flickered, pulsed once, and went out. All of them, at once. And then, just for a heartbeat, the overhead speakers, the ones used for fire drills and store announcements, played a sound that only Matthews seemed to recognize, a single stretched-out note from Emily's old Fisher-Price xylophone. D-flat, her favorite, her last. That night, Rebecca vanished. The only evidence she ever existed was a single sticky note left on Matthews' desk, written in Sharpie, smeared like it had been crying. Asterisk, it's not your fault, but you're the only one who can stop it now. Asterisk, this morning, the CEO flew in, unannounced. The meeting is in 15 minutes. Every department head is being called to the main conference room, including Matthews, who was never supposed to be more than a fake cashier with a hidden mic. And just now, a baby in the customer checkout line, no older than 8 months, looked up at him and said, in a voice unmistakably adult, asterisk, she's still listening. Asterisk, the mother didn't notice. No one did. Except Matthews. He turned to the security mirror again, and this time, his reflection didn't move. Matthews didn't tell anyone what the baby said. He stood frozen in the checkout aisle, the world grinding around him like rusted gears, too loud and too quiet at the same time. Customers moved, blinked, paid, and bagged their items in slow, distorted motion. The colors of the store lights grew unnaturally warm, buzzing with a low hum that now seemed to spell things out in Morse. Though he didn't know Morse, his heart punched his ribs, desperate for logic to ground him. But logic had walked out. The moment a child with wet gums and wide eyes spoke in a dead girl's cadence. He didn't even check the cameras this time. What was the point? Either he was spiraling, or reality was. The meeting room was cold when he entered, as if the air hadn't been disturbed in weeks. But that was impossible. There was coffee on the side table, still steaming, a half-eaten donut, an HR memo on the whiteboard about summer dress code compliance dated this morning. The others arrived in scattered silence. None of them made eye contact. Not even Garcia, the floor manager who once joked about how Matthews folded shirts like a dad, who watched his family vanish. It was never funny, but today, it rang like prophecy. And then she walked in, not Rebecca, someone else. She called herself Lydia. Claimed to be from corporate oversight, a department that doesn't exist. Matthews knew because he checked every corporate directory after the last incident. She was tall, expressionless, with that polite, bureaucratic tone that lands somewhere between nurse and interrogator. Her hands trembled slightly, but not from fear. They shook like someone trying to hold a shape they weren't built for. She didn't ask for introductions, didn't smile. She just placed a thick black folder on the conference table, no logo, no label, then slowly opened it. Inside were photos. Dozens of them, spread face up across the polished wood like tarot cards laid by a blind priest. They were surveillance stills, time-stamped from months prior. Matthews felt his gut curdle when he leaned in. He was in every one, not undercover, not in his staged employee uniform, but in his real clothes. At home, in his apartment. In his sleep, he recoiled. Where the hell did you get these? Lydia looked him dead in the eye. You've been off protocol since March. March. He choked. I was assigned here in May. No. She slid a second folder across to him. You've been missing since March. The room fell away in pieces. Matthews opened the folder with slow, shaking fingers. The documents inside were medical, confidential. Pages stamped by institutions he didn't remember checking into. Psych evals, EEG scans, medication logs, dosages, side effects, possible delusions related to unresolved trauma response. A line, circled in red, **** subject believes he is embedded in an undercover corporate operation. No such assignment exists, ***. The table creaked as he leaned back, bile rising to his throat. This isn't real. But it was his signature on the bottom of every form. He looked at the others in the room, Garcia, Lonnie from payroll, even Carter from loss prevention, but their faces were distant, gauzy, like static, almost. None of them blinked. No one said a word, and then one of them, maybe Lonnie, though her name felt slippery now, smiled, not friendly, knowing, almost mournful, as if to say, we've all been here before. Then Lydia asked the question, do you remember your daughter's voice? Matthews turned, blood draining from his face, because now that he reached for it, really tried, he couldn't. Not the pitch, not the laugh, not the way she'd said dad when she was scared, like it was the only shield that could save her. All he could summon was the image of her face, framed in a hospital bed, then fading like water-damaged film, a flicker of static behind his eyelids, a file he was no longer authorized to access. He stood up too fast. The folder slipped from his lap and spilled across the floor. No one moved to help. Lydia's voice was soft, but it cut through like glass. Matthews, if you're hearing her again, we need to adjust your treatment plan. Her words didn't make sense. Not because they were wrong, but because they fit too neatly, too prepared, like she'd rehearsed them with someone else who'd lived this moment before. But that wasn't possible, was it? He stumbled out of the room. The hallway felt different now. The walls seemed closer. The exit signs flickered, just to beat off rhythm, as if something else was pulsing behind the power supply. Every footstep echoed twice, once delayed, somewhere overhead. The intercom popped, buzzed, and let out a high, soft, keening sound, like someone was crying through wires. His locker was already open when he reached it. He didn't remember unlocking it. Inside was a small cassette recorder. The old kind, silver buttons, dulled by years of thumbprints, and a note, scribbled in his own handwriting, except more rushed, frantic, ***, play this when they tell you she's not real. ***, he pressed play. A click, then static, then silence, then his own voice, warped, panicked, ***, if you're hearing this, she's alive. They've buried the files. They buried her with the files. Room 613. It's not on the map. You have to ***, the tape clicked off. Room 613 didn't exist. He'd checked the blueprints himself. The floor only went up to 6 to 12. No odd-numbered maintenance wing, no lower annex. And yet, as he stared at the map by the security office, a small black smudge hovered next to the boiler access corridor. He'd never noticed it before. His hand moved to it on instinct, tracing the shape like braille. And then he saw it, a narrow gray door near the back, barely visible from the camera angle. No handle, just a keypad. He never remembered seeing it before, but his fingers knew the code. It opened on the first try. Inside was darkness. Not pitch black, vacuum black, the kind of black that swallowed perspective and bent sound. He stepped in, and the door slammed shut behind him. No light, no phone signal, just the sharp whine of tinnitus building in his ears, and something faint beneath it breathing. Familiar breathing. Emily. He whispered. No reply, but he heard a voice, not hers, this time. A new one. A man's guttural, like someone trying to speak through crushed ribs. ***, we showed you once. You chose to forget. ***, he spun. Nothing, just walls. Cold and metal, and pulsing faintly, like veins. Then a flash. A single television screen blinked on in the center of the room, showing grainy footage, black and white, time-stamped February 14th, 17. His living room. Valentine's Day. He was back in the locker room, kneeling, no tape recorder, no note, no folder, just Lydia, standing above him, clipboard in hand, frowning softly. You missed the meeting again, she said, gently. Matthews blinked. I was just in room 613. There is no room 613. He looked around. Everything was normal. Fluorescent lighting, break room coffee, shirts twofold, his name tag. But when he reached for it, he saw the name. Not his. It read, ***, Rebecca. ***, and somewhere, deep inside the ceiling, a baby began to cry, but the sound played in reverse. Matthews sat in the break room, sunlight pooling against the faded linoleum as if nothing had ever happened. No tapes, no disappearing doors, no voices in vents, just the low hum of the vending machine and a half-empty mug of store-brand coffee turning lukewarm in his hands. For the first time in days, maybe weeks, he felt something like relief. or at least a pause in the fever dream spiral that had wrapped around his ribs. Lydia said he'd had an episode, that his medication had been tampered with, possibly even stolen, that the strange folder and fake assignments were symptoms not signs. According to her, he had been relocated here after a breakdown following a workplace accident in 2017, and the entire undercover boss scenario was a projected structure, a coping mechanism built from corporate culture and grief. There were no missing hires, no secret rooms, no buried daughters, just recovery, one shift at a time. She even showed him footage, security tapes, logs, full of timestamps, and people using his name. Everything cataloged, everything accounted for. He wanted to believe her. God, he wanted to. The version where he'd made it all up, where Rebecca never existed, where Emily was a ghost of trauma, not something worse, not something waiting. That version came with rules, meds, appointments, predictable triggers. He could live with that. People did. And maybe that's what healing was, giving up the story you wanted to be true in favor of the one that let you sleep at night. But then he opened his locker again, and the shirt was gone. The one he wore on the day Rebecca vanished. The one he'd found crusted with something dried and dark around the cuffs was gone, not replaced, erased. The other uniforms were folded neatly, untouched, same as always. But that one shirt, the one that never showed up on laundry records, the one that still smelled like lilacs and copper, had been removed like a witness. He asked Lydia. She said he never reported it, that there was no such shirt in his locker, that the footage of him finding it didn't exist. He checked the time-stamped copy he saved on his burner USB, corrupted. He ran facial recognition on the video from 2 days ago, when the baby spoke in reverse. The mother, registered to a woman who died in 2009. He called the number .disconnected. Still. He convinced himself it was noise static, the kind the brain makes when it's looking for patterns in trauma. Lydia had said as much. You've been trapped in a loop of incomplete grief. It's not your fault, she'd told him, tapping her pen gently on her clipboard. You lost a child. People fracture in stranger ways than this. But then she mentioned something else offhand, like it didn't matter. You've always been drawn to institutions. This store, the hospital before it, the train depot when you were a teen. Always places with hallways and fluorescent lighting. Always places that echo. He hadn't told her about the depot. Not even his therapist knew about the summer heat. Snuck into the abandoned railway station in his hometown, chasing a shadow he thought looked like his brother. That was 1996. The year his brother ran away. The year Matthews started sleepwalking. That night, he broke into the back storage unit behind the frozen foods aisle, the one sealed off since the generator failure last winter. No cameras, no staff access. Just a rusted industrial freezer and crates of expired promotions. He didn't know why he did it, only that his legs carried him there like they had done it before. In the dark, he found a stack of old employee evaluations in a water-damaged file cabinet, and among them, an image black and white, printed from a thermalcam, dated last week. It showed Matthews standing alone in the hallway, except he wasn't alone. Behind him, half obscured by motion blur and a trail of static, was a shape. Not a person, not exactly, just an outline, like the residue of someone who hadn't been alive long enough to leave a full impression, and it was the same height as Emily had been. That's when something broke. The false resolution 8, comforting, sterile, collapsed like a sandcastle under a tide that had always been coming, because now Matthews remembered something he hadn't thought of in years. A school field trip. Emily was 7. They had visited the Science Museum downtown. She loved it, wouldn't stop talking about the sound tunnel, the long, padded hallway where you could whisper at one end and hear it perfectly at the other, no matter the distance. He remembered the tour guide saying, the human brain remembers sound more deeply than image. You might forget what she wore, but you'll never forget what she said. Except now he couldn't remember either. Only this: when they got home, that night, Emily wouldn't speak, wouldn't even look at him. She just wrote the same sentence over and over in her diary. Asterisk, asterisk, he's not who he says he is. Asterisk, asterisk, at the time, Matthews thought she was mimicking something from TV, a game. Maybe she'd been spooked by one of the exhibits, but now, in the flickering half-light of the storage unit, he wasn't sure. Because what if she wasn't talking about a stranger? What if she was talking about asterisk him? Asterisk. He staggered out of the storage room, sweating, heart hammering, the world tilting at a strange, nauseating angle. Every sign overhead seemed too loud now, like it was buzzing with secrets. Sale ends Tuesday. Do not enter. Employees only. And all of them seemed to pulse, to rearrange themselves in the corners of his vision into messages meant for him and him alone. Asterisk, asterisk, remember room 613. Asterisk, 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 she's still listening. Asterisk, 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 you're not crazy, they lied to you. Asterisk, asterisk, he ran to the staff server, opened the hidden camera archives, the ones only IT could access. And he found the file. Asterisk, 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 meeting room, _ final words. MP for asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. It was dated 3 weeks ago. He'd never been in that meeting. The name meant nothing. He played it anyway. The footage began in the executive boardroom. 10 chairs, 9 people, 1 empty seat. But they were all talking about him. Not out loud, just notes, passed around, all of them wearing earpieces. Lydia was there. So was Garcia, and Rebecca. Rebecca. She was alive, smiling, calm, talking in perfect rhythm with a speech he hadn't remembered giving word for word. Her lips moved, and his voice came out. It wasn't playback. It wasn't dubbed. She was saying the words before he ever had. The file cut to black. Then one final frame. Subject, successfully transferred. Identity merge at 84% completion. The date on the footage matched the night he found the tape. Recorder. He closed the laptop. Sick. Shaking. Outside the server room, the store looked the same. Customers walked the aisles. Lights buzzed in harmony. The world had reset, polished, scrubbed, clean. But something was wrong. Familiar faces stared too long. Others didn't blink. Aisles rearranged themselves when he wasn't looking. Every clock on the wall showed a different time. Then his name was paged over the intercom, but not his current alias. Not the one that gave him. It was Emily's voice, calling for him, using his real name, the one he hadn't heard since before the accident. And in that moment, everything collapsed. Because he suddenly remembered a news report from a decade ago, about a man who lost his daughter in a house fire. A man who later claimed she still spoke to him through the static of broken electronics. A man who eventually vanished. No trace. No forwarding address. His name was Matthews. But the face on the report wasn't his. It was Rebecca's. And then it all flipped. The baby. The whispered name. The shirt. Room 613. The false memories. They weren't fragments. They were recordings. Backups. The whole story had been lived before. By someone else. Someone who looked like him, talked like him, but wasn't him. The mystery wasn't who Rebecca was, it was who he'd replaced. And right before the lights died and every aisle monitor blinked to static, right before the store shuttered itself closed with steel security doors that weren't on any blueprint, he saw the final security feed. It was Emily, not a child, not a ghost, just her face, blank, watching. And behind her, in the reflection of the glass, was him, but smiling in a way he never remembered doing. They had been watching long before Matthews noticed them. It started subtly. A woman at register 9 who never paid, never bagged her groceries, just stood in line with a single box of cereal, same brand, same size. Every afternoon, at exactly 3:17 p.m., her eyes didn't track movement like the others. She stared at the ceiling fixtures, as if waiting for something to begin. Matthews thought she might be homeless, or touched. But one day, when the cereal box slipped from her hands and spilled across the floor, he saw it. A pattern, burned faintly into the cardboard's underside, a series of slashes and dots. He copied it into his notepad out of instinct, pretending it was a barcode error. When he ran it through the damaged cipher tool on his offline laptop, the one no one knew about, the output returned a broken phrase, not your face, not your fault, but it's happening again. The next morning, his locker mirror had fogged in a way that didn't make sense. The air had been dry, the room too cold to condense breath. Still, 5 digits were traced into the glass from the inside, 22,714. He didn't remember writing them. That's when the dreams started. Syncing. At first, he thought they were just stress hallucinations, a byproduct of fractured sleep and the pills Lydia kept prescribing. But when Matthews approached Lonnie, the payroll assistant who always avoided eye contact and wore headphones without music, she froze mid-step. He hadn't even spoken yet. He had only walked toward her. She looked at him like a person seeing their own accident replayed from a different angle. "You were there," she whispered. Her voice was hoarse, like she'd been screaming elsewhere for days. "In the school hallway, behind the glass, you wore her backpack." Matthews stared at her. "What school?" But she was already gone. Left through the emergency exit without triggering the alarm, he didn't sleep that night. At 3:17 a.m., his laptop turned itself on. No connection, no power outlet, just a single file open on screen, an audio recording labeled HOWAV. He pressed play. A child's voice echoed through the speakers, distorted, looped over and over, not who you think, not who you think, not who until the end, when a new voice broke in, low adult, close to the mic. He remembers. Find the others. The phrase burned itself into his blood. Matthews began noticing people who weren't shopping, who didn't move like customers, people whose eyes never flicked to prices, who walked the same routes, always counterclockwise. People who paused just a beat too long near the ceiling, cameras as if they were checking to see if they were still being watched. He saw one of them in the toy aisle. A man in a janitor's uniform, cleaning the same scuff mark for over 20 minutes. When Matthews walked past, The man stopped him without lifting his head, just mumbled under his breath, words nearly swallowed by the hum of the fluorescence. Did you see her shoes? The white ones. She always wore white shoes. When it started, Matthews froze. Whose shoes? The man stood. Face wrong. Skin pulled too tight at the jawline. Like it was borrowed. You were right all along. Then he left the mop and walked directly into the employees-only door without a keycard. Matthews followed. But the hallway on the other side didn't exist. It was just painted to look like a door. He scraped at the surface with his keys. Under the latex paint, concrete under that hollow, he knocked. Something knocked back. When he told Lydia. She said he was having a return of symptoms. She started mentioning total integration delays in passing. Terms too technical, too clinical, like she wasn't treating him but monitoring him. She asked him to describe his *** inner continuity state. ***, he asked her why none of the clocks matched anymore. She didn't answer. That afternoon, his phone glitched, not the one issued by the store. His real one, the prepaid burner, used only for off-grid backups. The lock screen flickered, turned black, then flashed a pixelated image of what looked like a security badge with a photo ID, his own face. But the name below wasn't Matthews, it was Emily Cross. He dropped the phone. When he picked it up again, the screen was back to normal. For 2 days after, the serial woman didn't show up. Neither did Lonnie, neither did the janitor. But the dreams returned, more vivid, more shared. He saw himself in a white corridor lined with sealed doors, each door labeled with different years: 1996, 2003, 2017, 2023. Behind each one, fragments of someone else's life. But when he opened door 22714, there was no room, just a mirror, and behind him in the mirror, Emily, wearing white shoes but older, and crying. He wrote the number on every surface he could find, on the bathroom wall, on the frozen peas in the walk-in freezer, in receipt printers and digital clocks and expired price tags. Wherever there was space, he carved it. 22,714. And then he saw it, a file buried in the oldest part of the store's internal network, hidden under obsolete policy docs from a training program discontinued before he was hired. The file name was meaningless, VRSTNL_513, XR. But when he opened it, it wasn't a document. It was a recording, found footage from 20 years ago, Loris distorted. Shot on film, a classroom. Children lined up, a teacher's voice, off-screen instructing them to say your name, clearly for the memory test. And there she was. Emily. Not as a child. A test subject. She walked to the camera, looked into the lens, and said, "My name is Emily Cross, subject 22,714. This is my fourth format." Matthews screamed, slammed the laptop shut. It didn't turn off. It kept playing. The image glitched, then stabilized. A different room, a different face. A woman in a lab coat holding a clipboard. She was reading from a file. Testing echo resonance after phase 3 identity layering. Subject appears stable. Memory has not degraded. Observer confirms synchronization event with asset designated Matthews. Subject believes he is original. Behind her, in the mirror, his face, his body. But he wasn't moving. He wasn't in control. The observer turned toward the lens, stared directly at him. You are never alone in this. There are others watching, others waiting. But not all of them want you to wake up. Then the screen went black. From that moment on, Matthews stopped using his name. He didn't say it, didn't write it, didn't believe in it. Because if he wasn't the first, he wasn't the last. He saw more signs now. Symbols carved under the checkout counters, an eye with 2 pupils, a circle with a missing quadrant. Shared dreams left as notes in restroom stalls. Asterisk 22,714, saw the mirror too. Asterisk she remembers you before you were him. Asterisk don't trust the reflection, it learns faster. Asterisk the government never released records on subject 22,714. No one talks about the early trials. No one wants to admit the integration. Protocol failed, but someone's still running it, and now, you've seen it too. You paused when the serial fell. You noticed the clocks. You heard the voice under the white noise. That wasn't coincidence. That wasn't random. That was the door opening. You just didn't realize yet you've already walked through it.